Ryan Foss Skifstavik. Nah.
50% there.
Ryan
It's a failing grade. yeah. The first half is good. The Ryan Foss is like, you're spot on. And people, I think, usually pause there. And they'll like wait for me to chime in and like give them a head nod. Like, you're doing great.
See, I'm the idiot that just rolls.
No, it's great. No. I think those are the kind of people I want in my life. They just roll straight through, right?
Butcher the whole thing.
Just fucking straight through the door, ask for forgiveness later. And the best ones are the ones who just don't ask for forgiveness. They just like roll straight through like nothing happened. Yeah. Just like, I'm not wrong. And if I'm wrong, let's
change your name.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Daffy Duck reporting for duty.
Hello.
Hello. No, my favorite Hooked on Phonics version as a kid versus what I use today was I had this 7th grade math teacher who would say, Ryan Foss shit his pants. And the Hooked on Phonics version goes, Foss shit this week. Right? So when you think about shit this week, it's Foss shift Tess Veek. Like gear shift.
Test.
Tess Veek.
Veek.
Yes.
Veek.
Shift Tess Veek.
Foss
shift this week. That's why you have to say Foss shit this week.
Shift Tess Veek.
So just say shit this week 5 times.
Shit this week. Shit this week. Shit this week.
Yeah, and you get to Foss shift this week.
Foss shit this week.
Shift Tess Veek.
Shift Tess Veek. Well.
Yeah. You know.
Well, Ryan, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. Welcome to my living room.
Thank you. It's a beautiful living room. Quite warm though.
New York will never apologize for the heat, but
you'll just say your name wrong and keep rolling.
You just keep rolling.
Tell me about the nails. We got matching.
Get this on camera. Yeah. Blue is a new color, by the way. So this is shocking that we're on the same page because these are fresh. You can tell this is day old. No, but like your
months.
Coat.
Yeah, yesterday.
Right.
Yesterday.
2 days old right here. Yeah. No, but I've been doing it for like, I don't know, maybe 6 years at this point.
Why?
You know how it started? Ugly toes. How do you solve for ugly toes? What do you do? Fucking paint them.
Yeah.
Paint them.
Shit house, paint it.
Shit house, paint it. Dude, that's a different tangent, but my sister and I wanted to start an agency called Paint It White. Pew, 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 paint it white. And it was like, oh, why is that house not selling? Fucking paint it white. Paint it white, see what happens. Inside's ugly, paint it white. Outside's ugly, paint it white.
I tried it with my personality, but it didn't work.
No. Me neither. But ugly toes. Right, we're both so ADHD. It's like
it's gonna be so fun.
We're gonna make it back.
So good.
No, but ugly toes, and it was so much fun that we evolved to a smiley face on the pinky, and then it was like, oh, one nail painted. It's like kind of weird. It's like only funny for a week, and then and then we painted the nails. But it's always been like nude colors, like a pink. Or a lavender, like something soft where unless we were sitting next to each other, you're not really going to notice it. So the blue is like the first time in a very long time where I've deviated from like a nude color of like a pink, lavender, whatever, where it actually will like stand out. Because I just think that it's time. Be a little bolder, but we're wearing a lot. We got some blue jewelry, so it's fine. But it was sort of like a why not moment. You can always change it back.
You can always change it back.
It's not permanent, like
a face tattoo. I mean, that's not even permanent either.
I can't wait to get a face tattoo.
I love the Post Malone approach. He had no tattoos before he blew up, and he was like, "I'm just going to get a heap of face tattoos now." It's not like
you're really committing.
It's like not like he was a gangster or something at the start. And
I won't do it. I won't do a neck or a face tattoo as long as my mother's with us.
She's not here right now, so do you want to get the tattoo going?
She is on Earth still. Yeah, is what I was going for.
Okay, right.
But
right.
the whole
she gets to go to Mars or like the moon with Richard Branson at some point. Does that count?
No, unless she's not coming back.
Okay.
But if she's coming back,
she colonizes Mars with Elon.
Listen, that'd be quite the feat. You get a Mars tattoo with mom's face on it. Yeah, it's just like we get the planets around my neck and mom on my forehead. It's just like I did it. No, but that's the tattoos. I've been in love with storytelling and art just around my own personal history. But the whole point was never to have them out and about for mom to see. So like she knows they exist, but she's never seen them. And now that I'm getting into a lot of content, she's going to see the couple that I have on my forearms. But I think it's like 40, 41 maybe now. But I have shorts and I have socks.
So
most people have sleeves. No.
Mum's never seen
No.
them. Wow.
No.
It's not a bad stint for mum to never see them.
Yeah. I mean, out of all the disrespectful things I've done, this poor woman, but you know, she had 2 rules growing up: no motorcycles, no tattoos.
And you did both?
No motorcycle. But with the tattoos, a lot of them shouldn't be out and about anyway because they're quite dark.
Is it because they're like black tattoos or
emotionally dark?
Okay, right.
Listen, I'm so deep. All right. This is why you asked to interview me.
Exactly why.
Exactly. You're like, this guy, he's fucking under. Yeah.
There's an undercurrent here that I need to expose.
Yeah. No, but I think it's also like, just with my own history, there's a lot of like storytelling around death or drugs and different things. So I think they're not tattoos that should be out and about.
Sure.
And they're also really personal stories. So it's sort of like, if you know me, then you've seen me, you know, without my pants on.
How many people have seen you without your pants on?
Quite a few.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm the same. Like most of my tattoos are just a moment in time, and they're a snapshot to a part of me in that time period of my life.
Yeah.
But you touched on a few interesting points that I'd like to kind of circle right back to the start. So, you know, our early years do shape us as human beings, and I'd love to hear what the context of your early years were, you know, from say 0 to maybe 16 that shaped you as a human you are now.
Yeah, I think the early years are great to chat about. I mean, I always say I'm the oldest of 5. My parents are great. You can't choose your parents, but super grateful for them. My dad is always worked and lived abroad. So my parents are together, but he was always working abroad. And a lot of my early years that were formative, I grew up more like a partner than a son to my mother, getting to support her and be a son. But then, you know, I was also struggling with my own like mental health, addiction, like, so I was also the one causing chaos and setting the example of what not to do, and you know, the impulsive one. And
what time period was that in your life?
Maybe 12 to 20.
Oh shit, early.
Was like just a world of chaos.
Where do you think it came from?
Alcoholism runs in my family. Okay. It's a real thing. And then just really chasing that, wanting to feel better and reaching for temporary solutions, right? Whether it's sex, drugs, alcohol, money, whatever, reaching for anything to get out of myself, to feel different or to fit in or whatever it might be. So I think that sports really carried me through a lot, in terms of like getting through academics. I went to a handful of high schools, and then a couple universities. So I think it was really the development of like pushing through a lot of the ups and downs, but being lucky enough to have a family that was willing to be supportive when I needed it most. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. I mean, it's hard to speak in a general way about like age 0 to 16, but
I mean, you can be specific.
I had, my parents worked very hard. They came from nothing, and we grew up all over the world. We traveled a lot. I think from 0 to 16, I was jealous at one point around like the kids in my hometown who had been like through kindergarten to high school with the same kids and like had those really close friendships and
The roots.
and seemed that like everywhere new I went, like I'm extroverted and communal, so like making new friends is not inconvenient or difficult, but there's always that underlying feeling of like
Not feeling like
these people are closer with each other than I am to them.
I know that feeling.
And it's not even that like black and white of like they're on the inside, you're on the outside. It's just it's a feeling that exists in the ether.
Yeah.
And I think you really feel that as a kid. I think maybe for me, I was more self-aware of like some of the social nuances of maybe where I felt I sat at the table. But yeah, I think family and sports and some of the core friendships I had were really great. But now looking at today, like I have friends all over the world. I can go anywhere in the world, never feel alone, always have someone or can connect through one other person. So I feel like relationship building is my thing. And it was building relationships that kept me afloat in any situation. Yeah.
So what do you think the importance of relationships are in the success of your life today?
They're everything. Whether it's personally, professionally, relationships, and the act of relationship building for others as a value proposition has been my value professionally, and then has also been how personally I've built, I think, a lot of the love in my life from friends, family, etc.
So break that down a little bit, because I think I get it on a high level, but I don't know if it might be glossed over by other people listening to this.
Yeah, I think I was never a kid where, dropping a resume in a hat was going to get me a job, or, my grades were going to open doors for me. The traditional academic system really wasn't for me. And so I think because of that, it was relationships early on and relationships that I built professionally that always, had me ending up in the right place at the right time, in the right room, around the right people, and getting opportunities to just be useful and be helpful. And that leading to a lot of my career growth. So I think, I don't know if I've never had a job where I dropped a resume. It was always like, Ryan, meet this person meet Ryan, you guys should work together. And it was, I think that's super interesting. I think it also led to a lot of the entrepreneurial stuff I've done over the years around starting businesses or getting involved with startups, where the value proposition is relationships. I think that I'm very excitable. I'm very much an idea person, and like to sit up at the strategy level and then put the right people in place to go build that idea or build that thing or that product, and filter in the relationships that are going to make something grow. Yeah.
Okay. So you like to work on a high level, and then you work with operators that make the thing tick. Yeah,
exactly. I think, but everything in my life is a result of relationships, and even how we met, of like being at an event where I was speaking and then meeting your friend and your friend bringing you over here. And, the whole reason we've set up a podcast studio in the living room is so that we can build this relationship flywheel where either we offer it as, some type of value proposition where we can be helpful or useful to someone, or, every week, a friend of ours interviews an athlete, or every week we have a friend who comes in and interviews a creator, or so we're constantly meeting new people at a high level that are building something, that are doing something exciting.
You're creating the hub.
Yeah, you're building yourself a flywheel of constantly meeting new people who are going to be on the same page as you. I think that genuinely, if you're starting a podcast and you're interested in content, we have something to talk about, because it's the people that are interested in talking about these ideas or asking questions or learning, right, that are going to produce, I think, the best long-term relationships for me in my life over like a 10, 20, 30-year timeline. So I want to surround myself with people that are curious. And you're obviously curious if you want to get in front of a camera and talk to people and like ask them shit, right? It's like I find humans fascinating. So I think that's part of it. Part of it is also like Ben, who I live with, and we're building a YouTube channel where it's been important for us to talk to people on camera and have debriefs with creators we work with and our team and different friends, and then he's got a software business that he's raised some money for where they're interviewing founders and investors and operators in their space, and that podcast that they launch is going to build a flywheel, and a top of funnel for their business. And so I think that there's so much of like, hey, here's how we can use this for us. Here's how we can then monetize our relationships to then pay a couple employees. We can cover our rent. We can do a handful of things to alleviate pressures in our lives. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, use it to fund support around us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, maybe let's go back again and let people know the kind of quick overview of your kind of life path and maybe the synopsis of your resume. And because there's a lot.
There's a lot there.
There's a lot going on.
But I think it's because I've been so curious. The life path of, I was born in New York City, but I grew up in Cyprus in the Mediterranean for 5 years before the family came back to the States. And I grew up for the most part in Connecticut, an hour from New York City, which is where mom and the dogs have been. And my dad has lived for the majority in London the last 20 years. And then he's been back in Cyprus the last 2 years. So over the last handful of years, I've started to support some of the stuff he's doing and work with him, spending time in both of those places. But my career trajectory has also had me traveling between LA, London, New York, etc. And today I run a consulting business, but it's a result of doing a handful of different things. So my first business in New York was an art gallery where I fell in love with like being the business end of supporting creative people. And then I worked for a couple M&A investment banks, just helping people buy and sell companies.
What did you study?
I studied finance, but
okay. Did you get a master's or anything?
No, and it took me 7 or 8 years to get a undergraduate piece of paper. But it was because I started working and reduced the amount of classes I was taking, which for me was great. And I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to get an education, but also grateful to my parents who allowed that to be a slower process and allowed me to experiment, try things, build things, fail at things, and then also work. So I think, and then I worked for a family office and hedge fund before getting an opportunity to be co-founder and COO of a startup here in New York. And I got that opportunity because in my free time, I was helping founders and startups build financial models or just advising them in a handful of different ways. And this amazing woman, really a visionary, asked me to join her full time. And I got to be a part of restructuring the business around how they made money. And we raised a bunch of money and we grew that business. And it was in the real estate space here in New York. So when COVID hit, we had to shut it down. We had to let go of a ton of people. And through that process of shutting that down and exiting that business, a lot of people in my network started asking me for help. Hey, can you help us not shut down our company? Sure can. And I got to I got to also be a part of building a creator house in LA called Honey House that grew to about 1 million followers in 60 days. And, so through that social experiment, I started working with a lot of creators. So my business today is sort of twofold. One, helping later stage companies or family offices or funds invest, or the other side of that is helping funds or startups raise money. And then a lot of the work I do today is helping creators invest money or make money. And so being on the business end for creative people, whether I'm working with founders or creators, is always really exciting to me. So I think like my purpose in life is to be helpful. And my job is to be helpful. And I feel like because I'm all over the place in terms of the things I've done, my network is also just, I've cast a wide net. So I feel really strongly that I can be helpful to any company in any category at any stage, because the impact I'm making is relationships.
You're a generalist.
Yeah. And I think for me, that's great because, when I'm connecting dots, it's easy for me to pull the right people in to support a business because I'm rarely the right person to like step into a company and build something, where it's more like, hey, here are the 3 people you need to put in place to grow this based on where you are today. And then when you hit this milestone, we'll bring in this person. When you hit that milestone, we'll bring in this person. And so I really enjoy being, in sort of a zoomed out capacity where I can help solve problems through a handful of different categories.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm hearing a lot of similarities to how I feel I navigate the world. From the feeling of like being around a lot of different places and being a bit of an outsider. And I know that exact feeling. Yeah. I've been in places and gone, yep, this is nice. They all want me here, but it's not, I'm not in the inner. I get it. I fully get it.
Yeah. But now I don't feel that way at all. I think a lot of that early insecurity was also around just not knowing who I was or what I liked, and being in a position where, I felt like I was constantly like looking for people to follow rather than like having a conversation with myself about how I wanted to spend my time or what I wanted to be doing.
And what did you get to? How do you want to spend your time? What do you want to be doing?
Well, I think the most helpful thing for me has been, my own adversity with mental health or addiction, alcoholism, which we touched on for a minute. But going through that process of getting sober, and being in a 12-step program and you arrive at the conclusion that like, hey, my purpose in life is to help other people. And so with that lens, I think I can find fulfillment in so many things. And then understanding very early on in my career, and also just as a young kid, we're like, oh, like I'm good at talking to people. I'm good at like relationships. That's what I'm going to double down on. Knowing that that's the value add allowed me to start finding ways to monetize those relationships or sell that as a value proposition and learn how I could be helpful professionally and impactful. So I feel like I love meeting new people and I love connecting people. So it sounds broad, but like you can really narrow that focus into specific things to make an impact. And so that's, yeah.
Yeah, nice. The interesting thing I heard there is you take a very high level approach on other people's businesses. Do you ever feel that there's a concern you'll then be not needed and kind of moved on very easily once they do get what they need? Like, how do you navigate that without being a core piece to somebody's organization?
Yeah, I think that that's sort of the point, is that it's more passive in a sense of day-to-day activities and tasks, 9 to 5 laid out, which is why I enjoy the consulting work so much, because I'm constantly getting to work with new businesses. But when you think about the time horizon of a business, whether you've just opened your LLC today or you're a publicly traded company, like there's always growth. So even if the goal, or even if a client is selling their business, they're generally going to be involved in some capacity after the business is sold. And so there's a huge sort of like timeline where relationships at every category along that 10-year trajectory of that company makes sense for someone like me to be involved. So, just because I'm not involved day to day in a business doesn't mean that it's not valuable for someone to have access to me. And so oftentimes I think that's what my clients are paying, that like retainer model for, is like, oh, you have access to me. And when you have access to me, you have access to my network. So, a problem that you don't have today might be a problem tomorrow, right? And I think along that trajectory for people, it's incredibly reassuring to know that like, no matter what happens or what comes up or what problems you may need to solve in your business, you can always solve them. Like it takes the fear out of company building, I think, for a lot of people, knowing that like sales, fundraising, partnerships, events, like talent, like whatever the category that is going to turn around or solve or grow something, I think we can always have a conversation about introducing things to a company. So I think that's it, and that's where I think I'm never in a position to like put myself out of business.
Yep.
And I think people can work with me as much or as little as they want, depending upon budget and scale and growth. Like I think it allows people to really control the pace. Yeah. I'm almost often almost like an extra co-founder or a board member or like an advisor, right? It's like I'm constantly advising people on their businesses. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you structure that value proposition to those businesses?
It depends what they need, but I think the value proposition is that I can fill in the gaps at any stage. So I think oftentimes for young companies, problems that I see are usually that young companies become top heavy too quickly. So if you're starting a company, you think, oh, I need a CFO, a COO, I need like a technical co-founder, I need a non-technical co-founder, or, all of a sudden you have this big management team and you're not
building anything.
You don't have any revenue yet.
Yeah.
Your product's not even in the market yet, but you have like 3 co-founders, 4 co-founders.
Is that a trap of people just getting easy money?
It's not even easy money. I think, you can get people involved for no money, if you're giving them equity. And I think part of the problem is when I think about like young companies being top heavy is that a founder has given out too much equity on day one. And as you raise money for that business and as they grow, that founder becomes less incentivized or diluted. Right? Like no company pre-Series A should have a CFO. You don't need one. Like don't give that person 5% of your business. And don't give 5% of your business to a friend just to call him your CFO if he's going to be sitting around like pressing a button on QuickBooks at the end of the month. Like it's just the value is not there. So I think a lot of founders are told they need a co-founder or multiple, and I think that's what I mean about top heavy. Like you can solve a lot of the infrastructure problems early on to be on the right path without having to bring in people at like an executive level for a significant amount of equity. So I think that's what I mean by top heavy. It's not like my favorite founders are the ones who are incredibly resilient and resourceful. And what that looks like is like, can you sell the dream and your vision and like enough to get people not to work for free, but to like come on board as an advisor? Can you get people to invest in you? Can you get people to support you? Can you build infrastructure without giving up a significant piece of your business? Because investors are going to want a significant piece of your business.
Yep.
And investors are going to want you to have a significant piece of your business.
So there's no
So I think where I come in is in that like advisory role where I'm not your co-founder. I don't need, I'm not taking 5, 10, 20% of your business. And we can put the right relationships in place, build you an advisory board. Let's look at the solutions you need. Where can you find talent? How can you incentivize people appropriately on an appropriate timeline? So I think it's more at an early stage, making sure people are set up for success, and fundraising can be grueling as a process. So how do you put yourself in the best position to make that as short a timeline as possible for you as a founder, so that you're not distracted from actually building the business, which is the whole point.
Yeah, that's the challenge, isn't it? There's a lot of distractions in this game.
There's a lot of distractions, but we also don't do any of this alone. So it's making sure that I think people feel like they have the support so that they can go build whatever it is they want to build.
Sure.
And oftentimes, a lot of people who are technical that I speak to that are building really interesting things, they're not relationship driven, right? They're building something.
They're focused on the product.
Yeah, and I think it's important, especially if people are building things that like they have the right people around them.
Yeah.
So that's how I often find myself working with younger companies. But to be honest, it's been the same for like emerging fund managers who maybe, if your fund is less than 10 million and it's like fund one is $1 to $5 to $10 million, you don't have management fees to pay a big team that's going to like help make an impact on portfolio companies or run a lot of content and marketing or do a lot of things. So helping emerging managers as well has been interesting, and how to position people, with the right language to de-risk an investment portfolio or de-risk a business, to make it attractive to investors.
Yeah, we might have to chat offline about this exact thing.
Yeah,
I'm working on some stuff at the moment. It's quite challenging to figure out. But so when did you found your first company?
I guess the 2015.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how many have you founded now?
Probably like 10, but I think some of them have been, in existence for 6 months and been turned off, put to the side, or sometimes the conversation is, now's not the right time for this thing. But you make an effort to like build out the idea and what a team could look like. And, you test and you learn, with beta customers and a beta product. And then there've been times where it's, you feel like, okay, like this is an interesting idea, but it's not the right idea and it's not the right time, or it's not the right time and it's the right idea. So for a handful of different reasons, I feel like I've generally spent a lot of like my entire free time, like looking at building things or starting things or helping other people build things. And, today there's a couple of companies, that I'm involved in that capacity that I'm super excited about, that are still ripping, still running. But that process of like starting and failing and learning and the research you do and the testing you do and has just been like my favorite form of learning.
Yeah.
So I think that's how I have fun, I guess.
Good way to have fun.
I think I get a lot of people make fun of me because I don't watch TV shows or haven't seen a lot of movies or whatever, but I feel like I like learning by doing. So I'm always very curious, but I think my problem is more focusing my time than anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it lends to being the generalist, but also it can be a trap at times. You mentioned, so how many of the 10 have succeeded versus failed?
Well, I think an example of one is like launching a podcast studio. We're sitting here. We are currently succeeding. We have producer Jordan over there.
Hi, Jordan.
And we're renting it out. We're booking it. We got a setup. We're just launched a lot of the social media and built a website. And I think success can be defined based on the business. And like for us, success is funding our team and covering the cost of, living in this space. And we're gonna really get paid in relationships through this business, but it should be like, a minimum $500,000 a year business.
Right.
And that's a huge success.
Right.
I think that for us is like huge success in terms of like infrastructure for our lives. And then, it allows us to do other things. It allows us to build relationships. The YouTube channel we've been building the last 6, 9, 12 months, from ideating to building the brand to filming stuff to testing things to learning things to editing to, taking our time to make sure we do it right. And now we're going to launch in a couple weeks. And, I think that'll be a big business, based on the way we've set it up. I think it's called Birthday Series. Mm-hmm. And the concept is that every episode we feature a different guest who's a creator, celebrity influencer, and we go and do a bucket list activity with them.
Love it.
And so, in those first, let's say 20 episodes, there's 100 million plus followers between those first 20
You've
guests.
already done 20 episodes?
No, we've filmed 6.
Okay.
We've got...
Weekly, or what's the plan?
It's probably going to be posted on YouTube long form every other week. But when you think about like our hack is sort of that organic distribution from our guests and their audiences. And so for us, we really believe in that concept. It's epic experiences with epic people, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun with it. And so it's not like we have a lot of conviction in that being successful, but success is like, can we build an audience? We think yes. Great. Can you build things on top of that? We'll see. We're excited about a lot of the ways we're thinking about collaborating with people in that business where, I've always wanted to make clothes. And so with Birthday Series, we're going to do a collab piece of clothing every episode.
Cool.
Maybe we'll make it. Yeah, with the guests. So maybe we'll make a pair of socks.
Cool.
Or we'll make a t-shirt or a hoodie or like a pair of shoes or pants, whatever it is, whatever they want to make, whatever's nostalgic or important to them or something that they wear a lot. And like, that's a fun way to allow people to participate. And I think that'll be fun, but it's in that capacity, it's not like if it will be successful, it's like when.
Yeah.
I think it's like as much as we want to engineer the success of that channel, I'm sure the pace will be humbling, but it's like we're very excited about that content series, and success for us has already happened. Like we've worked with one of the biggest brands in the world. Like Nike sponsored our last shoot, and we haven't even put out a single piece of content yet.
Love that.
So I think like we're on the right track.
Testament to that pitch deck.
The business I'm building now, my consulting business, has been amazing. Got a couple kids that work for me, and I've had clients that are investment banks to public companies to startups to funds to people, you name it. And I've got to do a lot of interesting things, and I continue to do that. So that is always, for me, it's built to life. So I think, for me, that's success. I get to work on interesting projects, and I get to learn something new every day, every week. Mm-hmm. And those are like the core things that I'm working on. I've started to build an OnlyFans management company with a friend in LA, where we're now looking at spinning out a wealth management platform for Vice category creators, tattoo artists, OnlyFans, sex workers.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I think it comes from a clause in the financial world called the Vice clause, where you can't invest in like Vice businesses. Cannabis or alcohol or sex. And so I think there are a lot of creators who don't want to go to JP Morgan Wealth Management. So offering a solution to that is super, super important, which is something we're looking at building now, which I think is going to be incredibly useful and helpful to a lot of creators. So there's always things happening. But again, it's like under the premise of how can we be helpful and useful to other people? Yeah. And then what are people asking for help with? Yeah. And it's like a lot of creators in my life now, they come to us and they say, hey, I'm making all this money and I'm not really sure what to do with it. Or, I want to put it to work in these ways, but I'm not sure how to set that up, whether they want to buy a business, start a business, a product, or they just want to be investing in things. They need support. And then the other side of that coin is we have a lot of creators that come to us that say, hey, I've got 2-3 million followers, but I'm not making any money. Yeah. And you're like, what do you mean you're not making money? And we figure out ways to help them not just like monetize their audience, but how to get to know themselves a little bit, how to price their value to the world, how to develop partnerships or get in touch with brands, or just trying to listen to people and figure out what they want to do and help them do it. I had a creator with a couple million followers maybe a month or two ago that just wanted a full-time job, wanted to create content for one company. And so we found him a company that was a great fit, and he's now full-time, building their TikTok. Which I think is an incredible thing for him, because he's got a salary and benefits and moved out of mom's basement, and he's super secure, and he's excited about that. So it's like people need help in all kinds of different ways. So that's where like being a generalist and building a life focused on relationships has been super impactful for the people around me, where they can use me as a jumping off point.
Yeah, nice. You've mentioned that, you had a bunch of different companies, and you've mentioned that some of them have succeeded, some of them failed, some of them are still going, and some of them are, being developed. I'm a big proponent of looking at all the things that have gone wrong and understanding why they've gone wrong, and then not making those mistakes as much as possible. So what has been your favorite failure to date? And why? And what did you learn?
My favorite failure? I mean, I think my favorite is the biggest failure. My last company, Wallplay, I think, obviously in the real estate space, we were doing pop-ups, and COVID interrupted that business model of pop-ups, and which is fine, but we had an incredible amount of learning opportunities up until, that business was really interrupted, where, it was the spring of 2020, and I was in a position to step in to lead the company, and our founder at the time was going to take an advisory role, and there was a lot of learning that had happened in terms of our management styles and the culture within the company and relationships with investors and also how the business itself made money and the contracts we had. And I think that a lot of the difficulties around that business were culture driven. They were on how people were treating each other inside the company, how ideas were shared and supported, and were people being listened to. And I think that when a company or when executives or founders don't take feedback well, I think it can pigeonhole the business, and then it can feel fragile. And at one point, there was sort of a Stockholm syndrome with employees where people didn't feel like they could voice their opinions or give feedback. And when an organization that's small has so much of a hierarchy.
Is that what happened with your business?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it makes it really difficult to have morale and so I think that there was a lot of trouble with feedback. There was a lot of trouble with communication. And then
how big was the team? How big was the business?
No, I mean when I joined, maybe it was like 10 to 15 people. We had a lot of freelancers supporting the business, but it was very involved. So like the company could scale up or scale down for projects as we were growing. But I think even in the first 4 or 5 months of joining that company as our COO, it took me 4 or 5 months to find my voice with that team, with that founder, in terms of voicing my opinion, putting my foot down, pushing back on ideas, or even being willing to get involved in conversations around the tech product we were building on top of the business that existed as a foundation. So, one of the most expensive mistakes we did was we were building a tech platform on top of a more traditional business. So our underlying contracts were with real estate developers and landlords where they would pay us $1 per square foot to operate their empty space. And then we would run pop-ups in those empty spaces. So the mandate was activity, not make money. Make money was second. Because for the landlord, it was better to have an active space than a dead space, boarded up or whatever it might be. And so I think it was probably like a $600,000 mistake to try to build a tech platform and marketplace on top of, at the time, too small a foundation in terms of the real estate footprint that we had. We had around 600,000 square feet in New York, 26 spaces. We were about to grow to Los Angeles, Miami. We were looking at Dallas, Boston, a couple of places, but the ambition to build that tech platform as a marketplace to shop for those spaces didn't need to exist yet, but a lot of investor money was spent on a technology team and building out a product that wasn't the right time to integrate. Yeah. So it was like trying to build two businesses at once made it incredibly difficult. And then one of my biggest mistakes was not doing my own due diligence on the product itself when I joined. And then also not participating in a lot of those early conversations around even like evaluating the product. And we were doing so much on the real estate footprint side that, I'm not a coder. I'm also not a designer. So, I didn't feel the need to be in a lot of those early conversations. And, it wasn't the highest and best use of my time. And my team didn't need an extra cook in the kitchen either. So, at the time you think, oh, that makes sense. Like, that's logical. But had I been, I think we would have nixed it much sooner or put it to the side much sooner.
You need to be, as a generalist, you need to be across everything at all times.
Yeah, and I feel like the founder that I joined has been working on it for a long time, and that should have been an indication for me that, hey, this needs some fresh eyes. I should take a look at it. But what had happened was I hired a friend of mine who is incredible as our, director of growth, who came to me like a month into the job or 2 months into the job being like in tears. It was like, this platform is not ready. Like, it's not where it should be. We're not ready to launch it. I wish you had told me that it wasn't ready to launch. I wouldn't have joined so early. I would have waited to join you guys later. And then I had to take a look at it and be like, oh my God, it's not ready. But it's also not the right time. And then when COVID hit, we had to let go of all these people. And I think there were so many learnings because it's on such a large scale. When you have so many employees and you've raised a lot of money, and you make a lot of mistakes along the way that contribute to things that slow down the business. And I think one of the other categories of, learnings was around like, hey, you need to be laser focused. Like, don't try to go build this other product, which is like an entirely different business. Like, focus on the business you're building. And then the other side of that is being laser focused on what you're good at and not getting distracted by what other companies are doing in the market. So, went to like a conference and you see this company doing this thing and you're like, oh, we could do that too. It's like, okay, well, like, how much, like how much of our business should be that?
Yeah.
There's like, oh, 30%. It's like, what? You want us to change our entire business model?
Yeah.
Just because like we've saw that company like pitch at an event or at a conference, and it's like, that's, we've never done that before. You want that to be 30% of our revenue, like in our model and like how we communicate to investors. And I think it was like not getting distracted by what other people are doing in the market and letting that affect how you build your business is important, because there was a time where it felt like every other month, the business model would change a little bit, or you'd go into a meeting and like you'd pitch someone something you don't even do, and you'd walk out of that meeting and be like, I guess we do this now.
Yeah.
Like, you got to go figure it out. So I think early on, just like knowing the MVP, being laser focused, like not getting distracted and being super intentional, but then also like as a founding team, being able to have strong feedback, not take things personally, and, really put the business first.
Yeah.
Is so important. So there's like learnings in every category, for sure. If I had a point, I would have made it already, by the way.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Okay.
There's a lot of points. So what advice would you give somebody who wanted to start their own business?
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many things, and I think it depends on the type of business and who you are, but it's like, take the time to be patient enough to set yourself up for success.
What does that look like?
I think it looks like identifying the people you'd want to get involved in your business to take it to the next steps. Really understanding what you're good at. If you could spend your time doing one thing that you're really good at every day, like how do you build a team around building whatever you want to build that allows you to do what you're good at. I think that I think for me, it's always just like about relationships. How can I used to have this investor who would say, how can we rig the game? Right? How can we take the risk out of, how can we rig the game? Who do we need to call? Who do we need to talk to rig the game? How do we de-risk, the business? How do we set ourselves up for success? And I think that's a lot of where people get confused around like access to capital. Like you don't want to just throw money at problems.
Constraints make
and you
ingenuity.
want to make sure that you have the right people around you from day one, and you understand where you can incentivize people to get involved, that can really build you something big. Because I think it's whatever the ambition is, you can be lean and mean, you can have a big team, it doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, like,
I've heard this really interesting thing. I've been listening to this podcast called the Founders Podcast.
Yeah.
Unfucking believable. And it just talks about all these different founders and their biographies and what the person takes from them. And there's a constant thing that keeps coming up where it's like bloat in an organization slows things down and doesn't actually create good outcomes.
Totally.
So all of these really wonderful additions to a lot of these companies like Apple, Microsoft, all these other things, it's small teams of smart people.
Yeah.
So I feel like you don't need a big team anymore. You don't need
a big team. You just need the right counterparts.
Yeah.
That's what I mean about like knowing what you're good at. So like my partner and my buddy Ben, like he's great at execution. And he's great at bringing my ideas back down to earth. And I'm great at, bringing his execution back down to earth, right? Like in terms of slowing us down and prioritizing the pace. Because I think he's aggressive in a really great way, where he wants to set like really ambitious timelines, and I'm able to sort of like be a bit more calm about how we approach problem solving and the pace of growth we want to see to achieve the same thing. And I think we work really well together in terms of like the counterweights there, and then we've put people around us that make sense in each category that are going to take us to where we need to go. But that's the point I was making earlier around like setting yourself up so when you have revenue or you have capital coming in, you're pouring gasoline on a fire. You're not
pouring gasoline on nothing.
Yeah, or trying to rub two twigs together. It's I think it's yeah, I mean, Ben says this all the time. You really don't want to throw money at problems. And I think it's like...
So what do you throw at problems?
People mostly. But
people's money?
Sometimes, but I think it's more like you throw infrastructure and you set yourself up to go to market with the right strategies to acquire customers, or to bring in investors at the right time, or using content, or like I think it's all of these things center around efficiency.
What are you thinking?
Thinking about so many different things. I think no, but it's like I think it's with anything. You also want to make sure that like the demand is there. Like, do you have this problem, or does everybody have this problem? So I think that like testing and learning as much as possible in terms of like how big is the market, is this really something that's going to take off? I think it's, you don't have to be profitable from day one, but it's really attractive. It's really sexy to bootstrap and be profitable. But just testing and learning, making less assumptions.
Yeah, that's a key point. And when you were saying that, I was thinking of a similar thing of just iterating, just constantly iterating, constantly making adjustments, trying new things, and seeing what will stick, and just rolling with the things that make sense and they stick. Otherwise, you are just making a bunch of assumptions, and you can throw a ton of money into the completely wrong direction, and it just is not worth anything. So.
Yeah, I think you can make a lot of painful mistakes that way, expensive mistakes. But some of the scrappiest and best founders I know, have been able to do incredible research. One of my favorite stories from the last year or two is this amazing founder. Her name's Katie. She's the founder of a company called Belly Welly. And it's this amazing snack company that is built on the fact that 2/3 of Americans have gut health issues, right? And so when you look at a lot of products that are out there to service the dairy-free and the gluten-free market, a lot of those snacks are still high in sugar alcohols, which aren't great for your gut health. And so what she did was she bought a couple Facebook groups in those categories and started polling those Facebook groups. She didn't spend a lot of money to do that. And it was an incredible way to research her niche audience, demographic.
Were they gut health Facebook groups?
So if you have IBS or gut health issues, doctors will put you on a low FODMAP diet. And she really wanted to service this category. And her thesis was that the low FODMAP diet was going to become the new aisle at the grocery store. It was going to become the new gluten-free, the new dairy-free, like low FODMAP. And I'm totally aligned with her in terms of category, just based on the fact that, these 2/3 of Americans have issues. But for somehow we just accept that. Like, oh, I'm bloated. Oh, I'm gassy, or like, I don't feel well, or like, that's just normalized here.
That meme of like hot girls have
yeah, right? Hot girls have IBS. Yeah, it's so true. It's like, or do we just live in America? Like, where the food is awful.
Talk about this shit for ages.
And I think the really cool thing about what she did is she spent a little bit of money. Let's say she spent like 10 grand and traded that for $1 million in ARR in 12 months.
Wow.
Versus you look at like this other company we met with that raised like $3 million and traded it for
$400K.
Yeah, like, I don't know, it was something ridiculous, like 600 or 800K in revenue, maybe 600K in revenue over like 2 years, right? And they wouldn't shut up about like their packaging. They had a team of 8, and they were like, "Oh, this packaging," and it was a cool package.
Was it worth $500 million in research?
I was like, yeah, okay. So you designed the package? And they were like, no, our agency did it. You're just like, so what did you guys do? Like, okay, you had an idea, but like you threw money at problems and you spent a couple $1 million like on agencies to do the website and the branding and the packaging and the product. It's like, and then they were going just retail first, which is incredibly difficult. It's hard to do.
Without brand, especially.
It's so hard to do if you don't have an audience or some type of leverage. And when you sort of juxtapose the two, Katie did an amazing job with Belly Welly. It's like, yeah, she spent a little bit of money to learn something about her customer, and she got to know her customer better than anyone else. And then she served them a product that they wanted.
Cool. Well, that's probably the core of it. So the advice for somebody who wants to start their own business, find something that people want.
Yeah, but it's like Jeff Bezos. It's like, know your customer.
Yeah.
Right? It's like,
but don't spend too much money. Just start off small, learn as much as you can.
Find out how to listen to people.
Yeah.
Whether that's like finding Facebook groups. You don't even have to buy the Facebook groups. Just like
go in there,
get in there, spamming. Post them. Like don't spam them. But it's like, but it's true. It's like, how can you learn?
Yeah.
Who do you need to listen to? You can find research in like crafty ways. And I think she's an incredible example. The other example I'd say is like, the business that Ben is building. Obviously I'm biased because I'm an investor and, I love Ben, but I think that, they bootstrapped to $500,000 in revenue before they raised any money. And they did that in 12 months. And now half that revenue was like doing agency style work to fund building a product.
Yeah.
So it's like they did agency style work to like help people fix their websites, and that funded them building a SaaS product that then they started selling to clients. And so I think that you can do consulting or agency style work that allows you to do research, discover problems, solve problems, and then turn your solution into something scalable. And I think that was also a really smart way to go about it. It's like, okay, you don't have to have money. Go solve a problem, and you can solve a problem in a really manual way.
Yeah.
That's not scalable while you figure out how to scale the problem, the solution. So they've built a product that consolidates all of the third-party apps that you'd use on your Shopify storefront under one umbrella. So you have one customer service provider that is servicing everything you need to build the biggest and baddest Shopify website. They've been increasing conversion rates over 100% for people. Wow. And when you have one app, not 10 apps on your Shopify site, your site is faster. So they're rounding up all the different kind of.
Are they doing it on a concept basis, or are they kind of cloning products?
Yeah, so they're auditing brands' websites and saying, hey, allow us to fix X, Y, and Z by coming on to our theme on Shopify. If you have a storefront, you have a theme, use our theme. We update it monthly and quarterly, and we integrate the best, products in the market under one umbrella to service your site. We'll help you convert more customers. We'll help you save money and make money.
Cool.
It's really simple. It's straightforward. It's a no-brainer. For the brands they talk to, the story that I was getting at there is more so that they started by self-funding it by doing manual agency style work that they put into building a product that people wanted, that was solving problems that they were currently solving in a manual way, and created a solution that was scalable.
Brilliant.
So I think there are tons of ways when you think about like, how do we rig the game? How do we set ourselves up for success? When's the right time to take money? It's like, well, we know there's a problem. Let's figure out a scalable solution to that problem. And then, that's what you put time and money into, to scaling. So I think that's what makes both of those examples so attractive, in terms of case studies.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, cool. So have there been any moments or persons or experiences that have kind of changed your life or shaped the way you look at the world?
I mean, so many things.
What's a big one that just stands out?
It's a big one. So October for me, God willing, is going to be 11 years sober. So, I think that, that inflection point of like, getting an opportunity to get help and go to rehab.
So how old were you when you went to rehab?
20.
It's young.
Yeah. Young. Definitely young enough to fuck it up. Young enough to think I was too young to stick it out. But wouldn't trade that experience for anything. And today it's given me a design for living that I couldn't do on my own. Right. And I think that was one of the most incredible transitions in my life. and then having a program, and a support network to guide me, has been priceless, and shaped how I view humans. So I think one of the best things that I heard when I was young, was that I wasn't bad and needed to get good. Yeah. I was sick and needed to get well. Yeah. And when I heard that, for me, not only was that important, but then it shifted how I viewed human beings, right? Yeah. So I'm like, oh, that's not a bad person. That's a sick person.
Yeah.
Right? I think from that perspective, it's incredibly helpful when trying to simplify life's uncomfortabilities in general, right? So like, oh, that's not about me.
Yeah.
That behavior, that has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
That is a sick person.
Yeah.
I hope that they get help. I hope that they become a well person so that they hurt less people, including themselves. But, I'm not confused about life being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right? I think people are always like, oh, why me? Why me? Why is this happening to me?
It is.
It's like, well, why not you?
It's always
right. Like there's the saying of like, oh, anything that doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's not stronger. It's like, it makes me more useful to other people. It's like, of course it should happen to me. And I think that idea of not being confused about life being uncomfortable is getting really comfortable with that. Sure. So as part of that process and living a life of like drugs and alcohol and chaos, and then now living a life
of peace and equanimity.
Yeah, like I wouldn't trade my peace of mind for anything.
Sure.
And it's funny, like both feedback I get personally and professionally is that I'm too calm. I'm not happy enough when I'm happy. I'm not sad enough when I'm sad. I'm not, we have to fire someone. We have to hire someone. We're losing money. We're making money. Like, it's all good. And I think, I've had an ex-girlfriend call me a zombie. It's like, I'm at peace with my life. It's a good place to be. And I will defend that at all costs. But one of my favorite...
calmly.
calmly. Right? It's even when you think about like anger. Like I'm someone who gets really quiet when I get angry. Or, generally in most senses, like my reaction is to get quiet. It's to understand how I feel about something and then make a decision.
So emotionally intelligent, it seems.
Yeah, I just think that like I'm lucky enough to where early enough in my life, I grew up really quickly. And now I have tools spiritually, emotionally, physically with humans around me that I can go to for support. But one of my favorite philosophies comes from Aristotle's writings on happiness. And he talks about building this virtuous life. And what he's talking about is esteem building, right? And so he defines happiness as a state of being, right? And this is sort of the work we do. But it's doing the next right thing and trusting that, things will fall into place. And not being confused about joy, which is a feeling, and we laugh and we love and we have fun, but that happiness is a state of being, and no matter whether I feel joy or I feel sadness or I feel nervous or excited or I feel angry, whatever it is, like happiness is this state of being, and for me that's been super important because I'm just grateful to be here.
Yeah,
right? Like,
to be here.
Been to a lot of funerals. A lot of people aren't here. A lot of people don't make it. A lot of people don't get the opportunity, to see tomorrow. It's a day at a time. Like all of these things, really like allow you to zoom out, and then like that gratitude that you feel, like that gratitude is an action. And so I think that has shaped my entire worldview on how I treat people, on how I treat, employees, family members, how I take care of myself. I think the other side of that is I don't always do a great job of taking care of myself. I think I put things and people in front of me, which is something I need to get better at. My friend Dom had this amazing quote she used to put on some merch that said, "Don't set yourself on fire to keep other people warm." And I felt like for me, that's something that has always hit home. Whether it's the people pleasing or saying yes to too many things or spreading myself too thin and having to like go back through that cycle of reeling things in. And, an example of that in real time is like only in the last 4 months, I would say, have I gotten back into fitness. Yeah. Like I haven't been fit since like 2017.
It's a foundation. Foundation.
And to me, that just means like healthy. Am I exercising? Am I eating relatively well? And Ben and I did this 75 hard challenge, which is great. I need a kick in the ass. I need accountability from a friend. I need like a program like that that can be helpful to work towards those things because it's too easy for me to deprioritize sleep or fitness or health because I'm so excited about giving and I'm so excited about like being helpful to others because I get so much fulfillment out of that. But at some point, like the ego needs to be rebalanced and like reel that in and like take care of me first. But again, it's like going through the cycles of that so that I can be more useful to others.
We've had a lot here. We've done a lot. So what does your like ideal kind of routine and weekly habits look like? What's like an ideal, like you've crushed the day?
Yeah. I mean, if I can move my body,
so you're waking up
for 45 an hour a day. That's great. Yeah. My friend Nick Dio is always talking about like, move your body. And so a great day is being able to do that at some point. I'm not strict on like has to be first thing or has to be in the evening or morning or afternoon, whatever. I'm usually in the gym at off hours if I'm going to the gym that day. I do like to walk in the morning. Try not to just sit on my phone the first 30 minutes. I like a walk in the morning. I like to intermittent fast, so my meals are usually in the later half of the day, but it's usually like my successful day is like moving my body,
meditation.
I think from the routine perspective, it's like a prayer, meditation, moving my body, some community activity, whether it's a meeting or an event or a touch point with people that I love, and then making connections. Whether I'm meeting new people or I'm connecting existing people to new people. Like that's my ideal day. It's always going to be I'm always making an introduction. I'm always being introduced. Like, the routine always involves of like making a connection a day, even if it's like sending a cold email a day or a DM or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Always a piece of outreach. I feel like I've done that for 10 years.
I like it.
One piece of outreach a day.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
It goes a long way. And
it goes a long way. It compounds. You need, all it takes is one, but yeah.
Yeah. What would you say, like if you were to give advice to yourself from 10 years ago, what would you say?
I feel like it's so tough. I mean, I think if I'm giving advice to my younger self, it's slow down. I think patience is difficult, but again, it's like slow down, and I think that's something that I've also been given as feedback personally, professionally. It can mean a handful of different things, but like taking my time to evaluate people, places, and things before like really diving deeper or committing or jumping in or, not spending too much time. And then I also think it's like, I love the sentiment of like, Gary Vee is like, offer value and don't ask for anything in return. But at some point, I think there was an inflection point of like, okay, well now we could have been like monetizing, or we could have been like not working for free at some point. Like I think the tipping point could have come sooner, which is
value,
which is fine. Yeah, I think it's like when you're offering a lot of value, you deserve to get paid for your worth and your value. And I think that people always struggle with that tipping point of like, whether they're charging or offering any service in any category, whether it's relationships or creative work or content or services of any kind. So I think it's finding a model for myself earlier would have been helpful, but it's hard because I don't live my life with any regrets. Like I wouldn't change anything that allowed me to arrive where I am today here sitting with you. Like
you are now.
Yeah, I wouldn't change anything. I think it's more the simple advice of like slow down, take your time, don't be in a rush.
It's hard, man, when you're young and hungry and you got something to prove.
Yeah.
It's fucking tough.
Yeah, it's tough, but I think that's good feedback, for someone like me.
Yeah.
I don't know. Some people need to like hurry the fuck up. But for me, it's like slowing down. It's been helpful. But yeah, all these things
helped. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think making an effort to be consistent with routine was something I didn't do early enough.
Yeah.
And I think routine can just make you a machine.
Yeah.
And I think oftentimes routine can feel like a constraint to people who are creative or but routine can really build that machine for yourself.
I hear that commonly. There's a book called The War of Art, and basically the core of that is your resistance to your creative work is going to come in many different forms, and it's very cunning, and it'll seem like a really reasonable thing to not do the work, but to be creative, you have to just sit down every single day and get it done, even when you don't have anything good to get done. And in the act of doing shit,
I can hear him ripping the jewel.
Every now and again, something amazing will come out of it.
Yeah.
And I was also listening to the podcast, this founders podcast. Rick Rubin's on it.
Cool.
He's on. They've done.
He did an episode.
Did an episode on Rick Rubin, and same deal. They're like, his whole thing was simplicity as much as possible, but to get to simplicity, you have to do more. You have to make 20 songs, 30, 40 songs to get to 8.
Yeah.
And in the process of, and then you have to cull.
I love that model of throwing shit at the wall. Like just
get it done.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
One of my favorite quotes is from like A$AP Rocky. He's like, since when did it become not cool to try? Like, of course you should try. Like,
fear.
Yeah. The coolest thing in the world to do is to try. Yeah.
I've eaten so much shit over the years. I just constantly eating shit.
But it's like, but it's
and
fine.
Still am.
You're learning. Like, if you're not winning, you're learning.
Yeah.
And like, giving a shit about something is cool. Caring is cool. I have this quote here. It says, "Caring is the coolest thing I've ever seen anyone do." It's
that.
Charlie Brown, and it's like, yeah, it's cool to be involved. It's cool to care. It's cool to be passionate. It's cool to like be ambitious. It's cool to try. And I think, that idea of like failing forward is so important.
As long as you don't blow up the house in the process.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's like
it's completely game over, then then that's. But it's rare that things are completely game over these days.
Mm.
You know, it's very rare. They used to, if you owed someone money, you'd get killed back in the day. You just go bankrupt.
Still a real thing.
Depends on who you got money from.
Yeah.
So, okay, it's cool. I like it. And and then on that note of, no regrets and all that sort of stuff, what, if you were 80 and you were to look back at your life from here, what would you have done to say that you'd been successful in life no matter what?
I think it's just like I've lived such a full life. Like I'm so fulfilled with the amount of people I've met and the types of people I met, and like, I still, of course I'm young, but I feel like don't stop traveling, don't stop meeting people, don't stop saying yes, don't stop trying things, like, be fearless.
And you get to 80, and if you've done that all the way through, then...
I still feel like I'm one of those people whose last words are going to be like, oops. Just like, it's like, which, whatever, I'm cool with that. If I feel like, I also try to surround myself with people who are yes friends. Like, call someone and be like, yo, I'm here doing this, like, join us.
Yeah.
Yes. See you soon. Like Ben and I, like, we'll say yes and then ask what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like in that movie with what's his name, The Town, where they're like robbing banks, and he's like, "Whose car are we gonna take?" It's like, yes, I'll be there. It's a terrible Boston accent, by the way.
It's all right. It's better than what I could do. So.
But I think. That's been the most fun, is like being a yes friend to other people and surrounding myself with people who, say yes, who are like-minded, ambitious, like finding good humans who are on the same wavelength of building friendships you want to last a lifetime.
Yeah.
Like people who think on a 20, 30 year timeline, not people who are thinking on like... what can I get from this tomorrow or next week?
I noted that you spoke about a long timeline right at the start when we were talking about the business side of things, and
I think about that with everything. I think because I'm so relationship focused, I've like trained myself to think on a like 20, 30 year timeline, and then I'm not like nitpicking things today. I'm not like, oh man, like Steve made an intro for me, but I haven't made an intro for him, or like, oh, I made 10 intros for this person, but like, it's like, I think about adding value to my friends and the people around me, like over a longer term, where like, how can I be helpful and useful to people, or I think it takes the transaction, like the transactional nature out of relationship building, where my incentive is to grow with you and alongside you, not what can I get out of this person, or like whatever it is. I think
long-term games with long-term people.
It breaks my heart when people are really short-sighted. And
it's fear.
It's fear. They cut relationships, early, or they're, so focused on the transaction, or, they're like counting things, and like, I think it's fear. I think it's insecurity. I think it's an experience. You know, but it's not our job to like enlighten people. You know, I think
I'm still not enlightened.
No, it's like life is
gonna.
life teaches you, right? It's like life taught me, like life is still teaching me.
Yeah.
Life is humbling me every day.
Oh my God.
It's like, you know, but it's like, so who am I to think that I'm gonna like educate or enlighten like someone who hasn't like people? You have to let people have their own experience, and I think that's really painful and really difficult.
But you can be a lighthouse to those around you.
You can
by leading an example, setting an example.
Totally, and people come back around, or you know, which I think is great. But I think oftentimes it's like people you like the most, and you're like, oh man, like I got to let go of that person or that energy or that like, you know, I can't be around that negative energy or that transactional stuff. Like,
yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's too bad. Like, and you know, you fade people in and out, and people come and go, which is great. But the people that stick around, like, are building for the long term. And I think those are the types of like disappointments that come up. Is when companies or people are short-sighted.
Sure.
So I think that's
tough.
Fine. That's it.
It's human nature.
Yeah.
It's tough. So do you have a book that's been most impactful to your life, and what was it, and why was it impactful?
Yeah. I mean, one of my favorite books that I read early on in my career was a book called The $12 Million Stuffed Shark. And
Never heard of it.
It's fantastic. You, of all people, would love it.
Okay.
But it is about the economics of the art world.
Is it about Beanie Babies or something?
No, it's about Damien Hirst, the artist. And it's about how Saatchi & Saatchi, famous gallerist from London, I think he was like, gave him like 25,000 pounds to go buy a shark from Australia. And then they put it in a formaldehyde box and sold it to Stephen Cohen for $12 million. And when you think about this concept of art, I love art because there's no wrong answer, right? Like if you like something and I think it's shit, no one's wrong, right? Like, and when you buy a piece of art, like the worst thing that can happen is you have something you like on the wall, right? And like, even if an artist kills somebody, it's probably going to go up in value, you know, definitely it's going to go up in value if they kill, like, right? It's like, but the $12 million stuffed shark in terms of the book is about how everything in life is branding, right? Like Larry Gagosian, famous art dealer, gallerist, has built a brand where he can call someone and say, I have this painting, you need to buy it. And they'll wire him $5 million before they've even seen the piece of art,
insane,
right? And that's the brand and the trust that he's built in terms of, you know, developing products. They are products, right? And like artists are brands, like any other brand, right? Like a Tiffany, Gucci, right? Like you have some of the biggest artists in the world, you have some of the biggest brands in the world, and it's all branding. But again, it's like, I think that for me early on, it really shaped how I viewed business and like brand building as a professional in your career, or brand building as a founder, brand building for artists, for creatives, you name it. I think that was really interesting to understand.
I wrote that down. I'll put in the show
but
notes
I think something more recent is Matthew McConaughey's biography, Greenlight.
It's good.
Fantastic. And he talks about like, you know, looking for these green lights in his life. And these green light moments that open doors, or, you know, I won't go too much into it to give it away, but I found his storytelling to be incredibly impactful around some of the same sentiments that I shared around, if you're not winning, you're learning, right? And like, even if it's a yellow light or a red light, like, just wait for that sucker to turn green. Like, you'll be on your way.
I'm hearing that in his voice right now. That exact accent, wait for that sucker to turn green. Yeah. He's like Texan accent.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, he did a study abroad program and lived in Australia when he was like 18 or younger. I don't remember, but
he's great.
No, I just think that you know, his approach, his methods, his principles, you know, of treating people well and looking for those green lights and following them is sort of what you know, we all have to go through. So I think like that's a recent book that I just loved listening to his perspective. I think people have really enjoyed, you know, him stepping into content and podcasts over the last couple of years. I think COVID really brought a lot of people with interesting perspectives into content. So he's someone who
he's great.
he's just great. Yeah.
Great dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like him a lot. So I get what you mean for sure.
Yeah.
If we'll wrap it up real soon. So is there anything you kind of like to say to the audience? Any closing remarks?
Closing remarks. I mean, I think one of the things that I've been thinking about recently is I've been asked to help like people find fulfillment or find what they're passionate about, or you know, if people are unhappy, friends, family, clients, whoever, and a lot of it settles back to like my purpose in life is to help others. So I think when we think about purpose in life, you know, we think it needs to be incredibly specific, but it can be incredibly broad. And I think that idea of, oh, my purpose in life is to help others, now I can find fulfillment in so many categories.
Sure.
And I feel like that has alleviated a lot of who am I and what am I doing, and you know, am I enjoying what I'm doing? Because it can be that simple. And when it's that simple, I think the direction I can take from that also simplifies. So I just think that it was something that like we got asked as kids, like, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Happy.
Fuck you. Yeah. Happy. Yeah.
Fulfilled.
Hopefully happy.
Yeah.
Alive.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that pressure that's put on people to like figure out what you want to do. It's like, what are you passionate about? It's like, fuck, I don't know. Like, am I passionate about banking? Probably not. But like, I think, you know, getting to know yourself better is such a worthwhile endeavor, whether it's like forced or it's, you know, an opportunity you give yourself, you know, allowing some type of like structure or format or infrastructure for your life to go like be who you want to be with confidence can be such a catalyst. And a catalyst in more of like relief from that bondage of self, like the noise inside your head, in terms of like having a direction and like, so yeah, I don't know. I think closing sentiment is that like, that's what I'm grateful for. And I think, simplifying that can be incredibly helpful to other people, but, so many things come to mind.
Yeah, cool. I like it. And the last question I have, and it's a very simple one, just to tie it all off, is what's the why in all of this? What's the meaning of life?
Yeah, the why is that. It's like, fuck, being useful. You know, like, you know, whether you want to call leaving the world a better place, it's like, yeah. You know, people like to talk about impact, but if I helped one person,
you never know what that'll turn into.
Yeah, can turn in that person could go help 100 people or whatever it is. So I think, for me, again, I feel so lucky and privileged, grateful, all the things that like I had, like a significant amount of adversity early on that put me in a position to get to know myself better, and then sort of take that concept of helping others into
a career.
a career, a purpose, fulfillment, where now I like being useful is the goal, and like getting to show up and be a son, be a brother, be a friend, do all of those things becomes incredibly rewarding. You know, and it's just helped me love people. You know, I think loving my mom is like being a son, you know, not overcomplicating that. And it's an example of, I think that goes back to like understanding the spectrum of people as like not bad and good, but sick and well.
And even just different views on the world. There's so many different ways to view the same thing.
Yeah, I think it's like I don't have the answers.
Yeah,
and I don't stress about having to have the answers. Yeah. It's like I have a seat at the table because I don't have the answers, right?
It's kind of ironic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's hilarious. I think like so stressed about like their opinions, but I just think that it's great to have a point of view, and like if you have a point of view and you want to voice it, like there's thanks to social media and tools, like you can voice it, like you can find other people, but yeah, I just think that there's not. I think it's less about the right and the wrong, and it's like what can we learn from each other? What can we, and just want to be surrounded by people who are open, people who are curious. My favorite people.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate your time today.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Until next time.
Look at that. Until next time.
All right.
Yeah. Sick.
Done.